I was talking about the Not Effing Around Coalition. Now, this is the Not Effing Around Coalition, and this is them speaking about what they have to say. Now, remember, in the Wikipedia article, how the numbers kept growing and growing until it was 400 members and 200, and it was over 400 members and over 200 individuals that were armed marching in Louisiana, okay? On the Capitol, I believe it was. I can go back and make sure. You can go back to the previous video and see for yourself. But my point is if these were 600 armed white men, and the National Guard would be deployed and they would be mowed down. Okay, that's because of the stereotype perpetuated by academia and by the mental health agencies and by the local governments like Bucks County. This attitude is fostered by Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It is fostered by, organizations like the CSP, which is funded by Bucks County, Pennsylvania, by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and by people that work at agencies like Lenape Valley, Pendle Mental Health, etc. Now, what you need to understand, during the midst of the high gun violence, which had to do with the large amounts of criminals roaming the streets and the fact that Trump refused to enforce the law when he was in office, there was a movement called #BackfireTrump. Now, the funny thing is, nobody told Trump to repeal his ridiculous criminal justice reform, which let the criminals out of prison, which literally ended up promoting the gun violence. That is what promoted the gun violence, was letting these people out of prison. And what that did is it encouraged more violence on the streets. Now, I'm not saying these individuals are criminals, but I am saying that the individuals if these people are private citizens that are owning firearms, that's their right. That's their right to own firearms. My point is this is using these firearms to act in a menacing manner. Okay, that's not legal. You are not allowed to menace with a firearm. You are not allowed to use your firearm to menace the public, which is what they're doing. Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, now if you go back to the Wikipedia article, you will see that a policeman that was on patrol was shot dead by a member of the Not Effing Around Coalition. Now let's hear what this coalition of militants has to say.
First rank, take 2 steps forward.
Let's shoot. Y'all know what our rules of engagement are, right? We don't point our weapons at nobody unless they point them at you. And if they do, kill them. We're going to prove to the world that we can be just as organized, just as disciplined, just as well armed, just as determined as any standing military of any government. The police carry weapons. Weapons were invented to defend oneself. So it is only common sense that we carry weapons to defend ourselves. It is not a question. It is a necessity. There's no other word. It's pathetic. It has deteriorated to a place that is reminiscent of the early 60s. It is reminiscent of Jim Crow.
Now, mind you, he's speaking about the alleged police violence against African Americans that was taking place. Now, if you look at those individual cases, the police violence was a lot of times justified. And if you look at police violence against black individuals, you will see statistically that there's not really that much. Now, moving on.
It is reminiscent of the Lynch era. It is reminiscent of the days of the Ku Klux Klan. Everything that we've done has been within the confines of the Constitution. The day that the NFAC steps over the line, it will be because the line was already stepped over for us first.
Now remember that a police officer was shot in the head for doing nothing but being on patrol.
Came completely out of It is the aftermath and the incidents themselves. It's not just the fact that they shot us. It's that once we're shot, as in the case of Breonna Taylor, there's this feet dragging and there's this lack of sense of urgency. If they decide they don't want to charge anyone, of course, they've got to explain that, not only to the population that's there, but also to all of the other members of the legislature that have given this wide focus. Why? And if you can show us in the law why you couldn't do that, then we have to live with that.
Now, this is what I want to make sure that people understand. Whether people know it or not, the people in these mental health organizations that promote the false narrative of black victimization by white people are promoting this kind of behavior, whether they know it or not. This is the kind of thing that they are justifying by perpetuating the fallacy of black victimization by society. So, shots rang out in Louisville, Kentucky on Saturday as hundreds of members of heavily armed militia groups converged on the city for a protest against police brutality. Louisville police confirmed 3 people were injured when a gun discharged as members of the Not Effing Around Militia, an all-black militia, gathered in Baxter. So a gun discharged. They're not going to say somebody fired a gun. An all-black militia gathered in Baxter Park shortly before 1 p.m. A spokesperson for the police department described the shooting to the Daily Beast as negligent. Okay, it was negligent. Not purposeful, negligent. And said there were no charges at this time. Yeah, because the cops are chicken shits. And no outstanding suspects. The victims, all of whom were members of the Not Effing Around coalition, were transferred to the University of Louisville Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, police said. This is the kind of behavior that's promoted by Bucks County, by the CSP, by Lenape Valley Foundation, and by anybody else promoting the fallacy of black victimization by society, because when you promote the fallacy,